All right, let's move on to the NFC North, where the Lions have the highest win total at 9. They win. Then so just one more game do they need to win here. I actually love this over. I'm very high on the Lions this year. They have upgraded their roster via free agency pretty extensively, especially with their defensive backs. They got CJ Gardner-Johnson, Cameron Sutton, Emmanuel Mosley. I just love this team. I love the coach. I love their, their whole ethos. I love them to be the kings of the North this year. So I love this over for the Lions.
You know what I love being? A Grinch. The Jaguars and the Lions. Oh yeah, I'm a Grinch. I'm a grouchy Grincherson. Grouchy McGrincherson right here. The Lions and the Jaguars both have win totals above 9. And I like both these teams. I was high on the Lions last year. I was high on the Jaguars last year. I love Dan Campbell. I think Jared Goff is done a tremendous job sort of, retooling his career after flaming out with Sean McVay. You have delightful weapons on this team, and Amon St. Brown, Jamal Williams is gone now, sorry, but that's actually a big deal. DeAndre Swift, Jameson Williams is one of my favorite players coming out of college last year. They traded TJ Hawkinson, but Lee McNeil, my dude on defense, they got a really high draft picks. Like, there's reason for optimism here with Aaron Rodgers leaving, the Vikings being a one-score fraud, and the Bears really, for as much hype as they're getting, rebuilding. Having said all that, when the Lions have a 9 win total after one good season, I'm taking the under. I'm a Groucherson. I'm sorry.
I mean, the only thing I don't love about the Lions is that so many people love it. So I kind of understand what you're saying.
Yeah, basically, exactly.
Well, I get that, but I look at this division. Green Bay is going to lose Aaron Rodgers. We have no idea what Jordan Love's going to look like. Even the coaching staff of the front office is kind of pumping the brakes on what the expectations should be for Jordan Love. I was preaching all last year that I thought Minnesota was fool's gold. I don't know if there's really anything that's crazy changed there. Chicago, I guess maybe we could see a Jalen Hurts type leap from Justin Fields if they put the right pieces around him. But right now, the most solid team in that division is the Detroit Lions. I like all the moves they've made this offseason. They've tried to improve that secondary. CJ Gardner-Johnson was arguably the biggest steal in free agency. They just brought back Marvin Jones to kind of solidify the depth of their receiving core. The one thing that I do think that could be interesting and throw a wrench into things a little bit is if all of a sudden this team drafts a quarterback and starts to shake Jared Goff's confidence a little bit. Because right now this team's rolling. He was playing great last year. If all of a sudden there's a dude breathing down his back on the sidelines who is a number, I forget what number they have. What is it? 6 or something like that, whatever the Detroit Lions are picking. It's a top 10 pick. Wherever they are, if that dude is, whether it's Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, is sitting there with a clipboard, and any interception that Jared Goff throws within the first few weeks, all of that starts happening. It's the 6th overall pick.
Yep.
That's going to cause some problems there. That might cause a little shakiness for Jared Goff. So that's the only thing that kind of concerns me a little bit. But overall, this is the most complete team in that division.
Go Lions. Boo Grinch.
Boo Brinson.
Boo Brinson. That should be a hat too. Boo Brinson. Right, moving on to the Packers. Yeah, the former kings of the North. 7.5 is their win total. I believe they got 8 wins last year. Presumably no Aaron Rodgers. This is going to be Jordan Love's team taking over. I was looking at some stats. When Rodgers replaced Favre in 2008, Green Bay went from a 13-3 season and an NFC Championship game to 6-10 in Rodgers' debut season. This at 7.5. I do think that Jordan Love might surprise some people, but I wouldn't be that shocked either if they go under this win total, because I do think the Lions are getting better. The Bears are getting better. The Vikings are still good, even though they win those single possession games. I can see the Packers taking a little step back.
Yeah, I got the under on the Packers, but I would not. I mean, I think we all think Aaron Rodgers is going to the Jets. It is very likely it's going to happen. Like 98.5% chance. I wouldn't bet the under on this until Rodgers is gone, though. Because that would suck. If you bet a bunch of money on the under in March on the Packers win total, and Aaron Rodgers comes back and is like angry and does his Aaron Rodgers stuff, I'm trying to find it on Caesars right now. I presume it may have been. I doubt it's been pulled. That would be kind of. I think it has been pulled until. I'm just missing the Packers. I think it may have been pulled until the Rodgers stuff is done. That's weird because there's the Packers. Under is -130. I mean, I just think we don't know what we're getting to Jordan Love. They don't have a ton of weapons. Like, this feels like a little bit of a rebuild. And remember, Aaron Rodgers' first season as starter, Sully, I think he went 6-10. It's not easy being a quarterback in the NFL and following a Hall of Famer. If you go 6-11, 7-10, and you look good, and you feel like you got promise for the future, that's perfectly fine.
But even go beyond just when Aaron Rodgers was the in his first year, it feels like any time these Hall of Fame quarterbacks leave the franchise, there's a little bit of a down year. Even if there's some promise with Jordan Love or like Kenny Pickett last year, it's a little bit of a down year. Whether it's Indianapolis, New England's a great example as well. Like those teams, there's a little bit of that downward exhale, whatever you want to call it, that following season. And I think the Packers are kind of ripe for it. And plus, I just don't love their schedule. I think it's one of the more difficult ones in the NFL, but I don't think that the opponent's strength of schedule really reflects that. But I mean, you're looking at an away schedule that consists of the Rams, Denver, Las Vegas. All those teams should be better. The Giants, Pittsburgh, I think is going to be better. Like that's not necessarily easy. And then when you look what's happening at Lambeau Field, Chiefs, Chargers, Rams, Saints, Bucks will be a win. But other than that, like there are some tough teams in there, not to mention your division. So I'm going to go under here. I think that it might be a little bit of a down year. Jordan Love might show us some things. They might not be in this quarterback hunt next offseason, but I do think it's going to be a little bit of a transition year for them.
And worth noting, the crossover division for the NFC North, somebody asked in the chat, I believe it's the AFC West.
AFC West, you're right.
So that's why you see these numbers are pretty suppressed. There's nobody who's in double digits because they got to play the Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, and Raiders.
AFC West and NFC South, which you would think is, should be easy, but still, I think that's a little bit more difficult than you might think for this team.
And Jimmy Garoppolo's Raiders. Yep.
That's right. Jimmy G's Raiders.
All right. Yeah, God. Ugh. All right. Next up, the Vikings. Their season win total is at 8.5. They went 13-4 last season. The Vikings were the most fraudulent team, I think, in the NFL last year. The 13-4 was ridiculous. They had 9+ single score wins. That was the 13th team to have that done of all time. Only 4 of the previous 12 teams returned to the playoffs the following season. Everybody knew they were a first round bounce out last year. Now this is down pretty low to 8.5 from the 13. I could see them still getting about 9 wins. So I'll go over, but I still think they're frauds.
So yeah, I mentioned the Pythagorean theorem and how that relates to, when like your win expectancy, right, and point scored, et cetera, et cetera. The Vikings went 13-4. They were expected, based on their point differential, to be a below 500 team. 8.4 wins. That is outrageous. I mean, they had negative point differential, right? I mean, like it's outrageous how much they outperformed their expected outperformed their expected performance. A lot of performing in there.
Yep. They overperformed expectations.
Right? Yeah, they just won a ton of one-score games, and that almost always comes back to bite you in the butt. It bit them in the playoffs, and it usually comes back to bite you the following season when you regress sort of towards the mean. Having said that, I mean, I think I'm taking the over here though because
so low. Yeah,
it's so low, and they have Kirk Cousins, they have Dalvin Cook, they have Justin Jefferson. They have decent offensive line that they brought back and, some developing guys. The defense is not going to be run by Ed Donatel. So that's good. I don't feel super comfortable with it, but I like Kevin O'Connell as a coach, so I'm going over.
Yeah, this that might be the win total that stinks the absolute most. It's horrible. I mean, like you were saying, Will, this team last year, 27th in the NFL in DVOA, which is around teams that are picking in the top of the draft. Carolina, Arizona, Chicago, Houston, Indianapolis. Those are the only teams that are below them right now in terms of DVOA last year. And somehow this team made the postseason. I was one of those people hammering the Giants in that playoff game because it just made so much sense. I will lean over just because of a few different factors. One, it's just another year of Kevin O'Connell. They should be a little bit more familiar in the system. And you do have Kirk Cousins playing for his future in the NFL. He is in the final year of his contract so this is kind of make or break for him, whether it's in Minnesota or somewhere else. He is going to be heavily motivated this year in a contract year. So that leads me to believe that they will go over here, but it's a stay away for me ultimately.
I saw Ian Marquez in the chat ask this question, like, would you bet the Vikings to win the division? Here's another one that you look at the number and you're like, what is happening here? The Vikings are 3-1 to win the division. 3-1 to win the division. It feels like I think just blindly they should probably be like the favorite, but everyone loves Detroit. I don't know. The Vegas factor here is freaking me out. Like 8.5 for this team, and then 3-1 to win the division. It stinks. It stinks out loud. It makes me not want to take the over.
Yeah.
I just
All
don't
right,
like
this one
it.
I'm excited about. Yeah, but but the good news is we don't have to bet any of these quite yet. We can wait on some of them. The Bears is probably the most exciting team in the division. I mean, in terms of things that they've done in the offseason, obviously the worst record last year, went 3-14, had the number one overall pick, sent it to Carolina for DJ Moore, and then a bunch of other free agent additions, particular to their defense. And now all of a sudden, bookmakers have them going at least 5 more wins. I love it. I think they could get 5 more wins because some of those games were a little bit close. And we look at the beginning of the season; they didn't know how to use Justin Fields yet. They've got him some weapons, so he's not going to be running himself into the ground. But I can see them getting 5 more wins. I like this over for the Bears.
I want the under for the Bears. Again, you got to play the AFC West. I know I'm Groucherson. Yeah, they added DJ Moore, great ad. They're not going to have that. They're going to have a second round pick for the Panthers, but they, Chase Claypool. I said at the time, bad trade. Looking like a bad trade right now. They improved the offensive line. That's great. It's still not very good. Justin Fields is probably a franchise quarterback. I mean, people are like mad that like how can you sign Lamar? He can't run forever. It's not like he can do that forever. It's like Justin Fields passed for like 1,900 yards last year. I mean, he maybe 2,500. Yeah, and look, it's not his fault that the team stinks around him. And I do think that they're the winners of the offseason. They get these linebackers that fit in the Matty Rufus scheme and all of that. That's great. They're a better team than they were. But as we said during free agency, when we do these recaps, like they can be a better team without being a really good team. And I don't think they're a good team yet. And if Justin Fields makes a huge step forward as a passer, by working in this Luke Getsy system, great. But they tried to do that last year. It didn't work. And so they fashioned this offense that catered to his legs. That would be my sort of concern there, is that maybe Fields doesn't take a step, undervaluing DJ Moore. DJ Moore's a good, maybe I undervalue DJ Moore. He's a low end number one.
Yeah, I think you properly rate him. I think that there is a difference between Stephon Diggs and A.J. Brown and DJ Moore. I think that those other two receivers are a tier above DJ Moore. And that's not to take anything away from him. He's, I would say, a 1B. I think that I don't think that that's discrediting him at all. I just don't know if he has the level of impact that Brown and Diggs had to their respective quarterbacks with Justin Fields. I don't know if he's able to help him make that leap that Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts did over those 2 years when they acquired them. I'm a little bit weary of that. I think 7.5 is a little bit too big for me. I think that maybe 7 is the right number. If that was 6.5, I would probably go over here. But I think that this team is still a year away from really me taking them super seriously.